Then I'm lucky that you are there in my class.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah,
That is true, very true.
yeah. Thank you, thank you. Yeah, I'm lucky actually. I'm lucky. I didn't say that you are lucky. I'm lucky.
No, we both, in a way, vice versa.
Yeah, yes. Of course, of course. That's
Ma'am,
nice.
it's not that we need you right now. It's not that.
Yeah, ma'am. Actually, yeah, because I always found this online classes very uncomfortable for me because it's a one way, right? I only talk and then I don't have to see. I won't be seeing your faces. Like there's a lot of disconnect is there. There's no connection, right? So, but that's okay. I think. Yeah, well,
Yes, ma'am.
what to do?
Matter of another 1 or 2 classes, that's all, ma'am.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's my pleasure, actually. That's wonderful, actually, to hear from that. It means a lot to me, actually. So, I have
Ma'am,
made a
towards
people.
the last 5 minutes,
Yeah.
I have one doubt, ma'am. One
Yes.
or two doubts.
Yes.
Because we received the assignment papers
Uh-huh.
and we started writing assignments.
Okay.
So I was just ticking the answers and all. I have few doubts.
Okay.
Towards last, shall we clarify, ma'am, please?
Sure. Tell me.
Yeah, towards last we'll clarify, ma'am. You continue right now.
Okay. Towards the end, you want me to?
Yeah,
Okay. Yeah.
towards yes,
Done. I
and
got it. I got it.
before 5 minutes or 10 minutes, we
Yeah.
shall
Sure. We'll do
discuss
that.
about it, ma'am.
Yeah,
Please.
we'll do that. So,
Thank you so much.
yeah. Most welcome. So actually, today, what I planned was like in the block 4, roles of materials, teachers and learners. I have a PPT for you guys actually. I thought of doing a couple of chapters, but I couldn't do it. But otherwise, we'll discuss only one unit that is, what is that? Instructional materials. That's what we'll be doing today. That is the 13th unit number 13. And so one thing I wanted to make it clear, see, even before I forget to tell you this one, that we have another one more class, right? We have only another one class. So I don't think we can do much in that class also because whatever time, 1 hour is not sufficient for us to, go through the whole complete A to Z of the textbook. So whatever, if at all, if we couldn't do, I know, of course, we are not able to do that, do all the units, right? So you just have to, as Daksha ma'am, you have told you said that in my previous class that ask all the students to read the textbook. Yes, that is the best, technique or strategy that you can actually, follow, wherein you can get all the details of the subject. Not only my subject, but it is advisable to all the subjects, because the ulterior objective of our course is to pass the examination to get a degree, right? So it's always better, instruction, everything, A to Z, if you read, it not only, gives you the certificate, but also a lot of knowledge. And then you will understand how to use, you can actually, this knowledge will become a tool for most of the teachers who are participants in this course can definitely, this MA course will definitely help them, to cope with their challenging situations in their own schools and colleges. That's how I think. So reading the textbook is always advisable. That's what this is, the instructional material, right? Through which we actually realize our objective. So that is what we are going to talk about today. So I'll share the screen for you guys. Actually, and one more thing I wanted to discuss about, just wanted to give you the previous question paper. I downloaded one question paper, but it is all, I think I have done it in a wrong way, in a different, you know, style or whatever. So it is all encoded. We have encoded print is coming on my screen. So let me see if I can give you in my next class, probably tomorrow, the same hour. So I will try to download it in a proper way so that I can give you the question paper.
Okay, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. And we will also figure out in my next class, we'll also figure out where all the questions there in the textbook. That's how it will become easy for you to, get an understanding, how to go about your examination, where all you can find the questions, and how are the questions only coming from the textbook, or like maybe from outside, so from other additional textbooks are. I didn't find any question which is out of our textbook. So I will let you know that also. You will also understand that. Okay. So let me share the screen for you guys actually. Just, yeah, for every yeah. So this is the unit 4. Okay.
Block 4.
Block 4. Exactly. Sorry. Yeah, this is actually block 4. I think I have. I didn't see it properly actually. Okay, I'm so sorry. And yeah, block 4, roles of materials, teachers, and learners. So in this one, we have 4 units, guys. Instructional materials is there, task design is there, and classroom interaction, the learner, learning centered classroom. Actually, this is just written clearly here. Okay, these are the 4 units that you have. And so today we will discuss about the 13th unit, that is instructional materials. Language acquisition. So we all understand it's an introduction. In the introductory part, what is there in the introduction of this particular unit is that, so first language we acquire from the natural communication in the real life, right? Naturally we acquire. A kid born in I mean, when the children are born, when they acquire the language in their natural communication, right? In the real life, naturally they acquire. So where the first language will be acquired by the natural settings, like in the real life, and the second language we acquire it from the educational settings, right? Where that particular language is being explicitly specified as a course design, right? There's a 2 things here. One is that first language is acquired naturally in the real life, and the second language will acquire in the educational setting, and where there is an explicitly specified course is designed of that language. So this is first background. So what is that? So language learning, second language learning takes place in the educational setting where there is an explicit specified courses designed. So all the textbooks, what we are studying, yeah, we are learning through the materials, right? Through the materials. There is one important point here actually. What is that? Materials we should learn through the material, but not learn the material. That's how there's one point here. So in this one, so first another one is that what is that? Yeah. So learning language in the context might specifically address the form. So whatever the language that we are learning in an educational setting, we actually learn all the 4 components in an integrated way. In an integrated way means that we cannot, separate the one skill from the other skill. If you are learning a particular language in an educational setting, that means you will not be, separating one skill. You just have to learn. If you want the proficiency in a language, if any learner wants to be a proficient in a particular language, then they have to exploit all the 4 skills, that is LSRW. So then only that person is called, proficient in a particular language. And then coming to this one, so language learning in this context must specifically address the component skills of the language used, namely LSRW. So the approaches of this teaching based on the theories and based on the theories of the language and the theories of the language learning, both. Just make a difference between these two, phrases here. Theories of the language and theories of the language learning are appropriate methodology to be adapted or identified. So when you are learning any particular language, what we have to identify is that, so the approaches of the language teaching based on the theories of the language and the theories of the language learning are to be appropriate. So methodologies are also very important. So the textbooks actually give you, or they, cater us with the material where you can actually adapt it. I mean, in some materials, the methodology is also been specified or given in detail what methodology to be adapted. And at the same time, the teacher is also at a liberty to use the methodology according to her, knowledge of the group that she's teaching. Like, for example, you just cannot, blindly follow a methodology which is being instructed in a material, because the group that you got, the learners in a particular class might not follow what the methodology is being instructed by the text materials. So that's how the appropriate methodology to be adapted and methods are identified. So we have to we should identify the methodologies also. So this is followed by the means through which the methodology can be put into effect in the classroom. This would involve the techniques to be used, the kind of activities and the tasks that would. Tasks would be needed to be performed. So this is how the materials, like, what is that? The approaches, see what we have studied, appropriate methodology to be adapted or to be identified. And this should be followed through the methodologies can be put into the effect in the classroom. What methodologies can be put, can be used, put into effect in the classroom, and the techniques that are to be used, and the kind of the activities and the tasks which would need to be performed. So the materials would not only give you the materials, okay? With the materials, you should be able to understand, the teacher should be able to understand what methodology can be put into effect and what techniques are to be used and what kind of activities are to be taken up and what tasks would be needed to be performed. These are the things that actually, figured out by the teacher using the materials, instructional materials in a classroom setting. So I think, guys, I am clear with this one, right? Introduction to this one, how instructional materials are useful. This is how the instructional materials are useful. What is that? First of all, we have discussed only 4 to 5 points here, guys. Actually, one is that natural, first language acquisition takes place through natural communication in real life. But the first language can be learned in the environment where the exposure is very adequate. And then the language teaching and learning can happen in the educational setting. That is the second point, through the explicitly specified course designs. So explicitly course design, we use designed courses wherein this, the language is taught. So that is the second point. And then the approaches to the language teaching. What is the approach to the language teaching? That we have discussed in our previous classes, right? Approaches to the language teaching. What approaches? So always, this is very important actually. The approaches are very important. So you just go through, revisit the chapter and then see what are the different approaches to the language teaching. So based on the theories of the language and the theories of the language learning, you have to adapt a methodology. That is another one. And then this should be followed. After you identify the approaches, you should be able to, what is that? We just have to, figure out a methodology which can be put into the effect. That is another one. So 3 points here, and then I have said that another methodology, what methodology can be put into effect, what are the technique that is used, activities, and the tasks that are to be performed in the classroom. So that's one thing. So, all these methodologies and then techniques, activities, and tasks, everything cannot can not only cannot happen with the teacher as the only source of the language inputs. Materials are selected, designed, and developed in order to optimize exposure to the language. So, in order to once there is a language class, or once we are there in a class to teach something to them, so materials will always help. The materials are selected, designed, and developed in order to optimize the exposure to the language. So these materials will help us. So what methodology, what all these things materials will help us. If language learning involves extensive exposure to the target language, it would mean, sorry, so, and then, okay. So that teaching language cannot happen with the teacher as the only source of the language inputs. Materials are to be selected, designed, and developed in order to optimize exposure to the language. So this is one point. That's the reason why we are looking into the instructional materials, how the instructional materials are there. If the language learning extensive exposure to the target language, it would mean the creation of varied opportunities for the language use. So if we are using a particular material in the classroom to the target, if we are using the material, okay, so we have to, what is the target language? For example, we are learning English. So, for example, I'm telling you, if an English teacher is teaching, I'm taking English as a subject, and then what is that? She needs to create varied opportunities for the language use. So this is the materials will help the teacher to be creative in the classroom, wherein she can adapt to some activities, varied opportunities where they can use the language. So that's how the materials will help. Materials helps in bringing language inputs into the classroom. So what is that material help us? Bringing inputs into the classroom. Teacher exploits the materials to help language learning happen. So that what is that very important is that we need to remember that teach the materials, but not teach the materials, but teach with the materials. That is the first and the foremost thing the teacher has to remember. So that's one thing to remember. And then, so what materials, how are materials useful? First of all, we have to understand how are materials useful. Materials are an aid to teach. They are like tools, like they are aids to teaching, and they provide the resource through which language reception and production can take place. They are resources, they are aids. They also provide the teacher with valuable help to adapt a particular methodology. In other words, the material serves the methodology adapted in the classroom. So the material will also serve as what methodology should be adapted in a classroom. And it will actually, that's one thing. And the teacher can also have a liberty to, exploit the materials and take up her own methodology wherein, can cater the purposes of the learners. That is how you can actually, that can also be a point there. They are the carriers for approach chosen and the methodology adapted. So these materials are the carriers for the approach chosen and the methodology adapted. Materials for an integral part of the whole process of the language learning and the teaching. Materials form an integral part. So what is that materials? Materials are actually, they are integral part of the whole process of language learning and teaching in an educational setting. So these are the 6 important, the benefits of the material, the uses of the material. So these are they are the materials, are the aids, they are the resources. They actually give a valuable help. They provide a valuable help to the teacher to a particular method or to adapt a particular methodology. and they also serve as a methodology adapted in a classroom. In other words, like they provide and then they help also, they assist the teacher also, so that they can take up a particular teacher can take up a particular methodology. And then they are the carriers for approach chosen by the methodology adapted. And then so the materials actually form an integral part of the whole process of language learning and teaching in an educational institutional setup. So this is how the introduction of the instructional materials are. So what we have discussed are, so first point is natural acquisition of the language happen in the normal natural settings. First language acquisition happens in the normal settings, and then the second language acquisition will happen in the instructional settings. And to acquire a second language or a foreign language, materials will are like the tools or the resources which help the learners to learn the language, and then the teacher will exploit these materials to train the to guide the students or to teach them, to help them learn that particular language. So I think I'm very clear up to this point, guys, right? And then kinds of instruction. So what are the different kinds of instructional materials we have? So there are two different, majorly there are two different materials are there. One is the, print material is there, and the second one is the non-print material is there. So kinds of instructional materials, the main objective of using a material for the language acquisition in the classroom is to provide exposure to the language and an environment for fostering language production using a simple inputs as stimuli. So what is that? What is the main objective of the language? Main objective of using a material for language instruction in the classroom is to provide exposure to the language and an environment for fostering language production using the inputs as stimuli. So we actually, what is the purpose is that the purpose of the materials is to expose the students to a particular language. That is very simple. And then the same thing which is again repeated in this paragraph, guys. Actually, I'll read out the first, the kinds of. If at all you have the textbook, please open 13.2 paragraph, wherein you will find
page number 136.
136. In my textbook, it is 139 actually. So mine is a very old one, so that's the reason why there is a variation in the page numbers. But yeah, so the same thing has been repeated here, guys. The difference between exposure to the language in natural settings and instructional settings is that in the former, the user encounters the whole language, while in the later, materials are chosen to suit the levels and the needs of the learners. That's how this is the same thing which we are already understood, right? So this kind of material that can be used in the classroom are selected from the texts available or specially designed and developed. So the kind of material that can be used in the classroom. Yeah, it is, of course, we all know that, right? Every class, every level of the learners will have a specified and then designed materials, designed and developed materials are available. So, right, see, we cannot give a first class student a material which is high above their, cognitive and cognitive competence, right? That's how. So that's the reason why the kind of materials that can be used in the classroom are selected, right, guys? So we cannot actually give beyond their cognitive ability, beyond their comprehensive, competence. So that's the reason why it has to be selected, and then it has to be selected. It has to be designed, developed, and selected. So texts are those that have been written for dissemination of the information or for enjoyment without language instruction object, but they are called authentic texts. And when they are used for the language, see, textbooks are used, like, for example, a simple way. Sangeeta? Yeah, guys, is there any background noise?
Lot of disturbance is there, madam. Lot of disturbance.
Anita, can you please mute yourself? Yeah, I think she's not there. Just get online and then wait. Lot of background noise is coming, right, guys?
Lot of nice. Lot of.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Sangeeta
You
actually
can
left
also
her.
mute Sangeeta. You can do that, ma'am.
Yeah, how do I do that actually?
Host can do it since.
Okay. Write out because. One second, guys. I'll ask my son to figure it out.
Lot of disturbance. Very much sound, you know.
Yeah, guys, I'm trying to figure it out. Yes, guys, I did it. Yeah. Now it's clear, right, guys? I muted. Okay. Trying to figure out. I got it. I'm successfully. I've done it successfully. So, guys, actually, yeah. So, what are we discussing is the kinds of instructional materials are print and non-print materials, and then so for every level of learners, whatever the whatever their needs, based on their needs, the levels of the learners, we have to choose the materials which suit their objective, suit their aims, objectives. So that's one thing that we have to. Basically, the materials are actually designed for the dissemination of the information, to give the information or for enjoyment or like that, without any language instruction objectives. And they are called authentic texts. So when they are used for the language teaching, the instructional objectives are imposed on them. So guys, make it one thing very clear. This is a simple statement, guys, actually. So the text available, texts which are written, which are available, all have been written to give information, right? And also for some textbooks are given to, some textbooks are, some, materials are written, stories or whatever, they are meant for, entertainment of the students. But when you use those materials as an instructional material, then their instructional objectives are imposed on them. Instructional objectives means, like for example, after reading the whole story of a particular of English textbook, the student should be able to write answers to the questions, the comprehensive questions, and then the meanings of some of the words in the. So first of all, basically, what is that? The texts which are written are basically for giving the information and also for entertainment. When these books are used as the instructional materials, objectives are imposed on them. So that's one thing to be very clearly noted. And newspapers, articles, and short story poems, etc., may be published for general reading purposes, but can be chosen because they illustrate languages. So this, whatever we see, right? Small stories, poems, biographies, etc., etc. Like they may be published for, they are all for general reading, but they can be chosen because they actually they are all using the literature. I mean, what is that? Illustrated to use of the language. This can be used as an aids to how to use a language. See, for example, if you are reading about so the factual information can be, used for used as an illustration for the language use. That is one thing. And materials, as I said, materials, and then print material. Print material is what print materials can. What are the print materials? Like textbooks, workbooks, supplementary reading, teachers books, etc., etc. And they also include detachable handouts, maps, figures, etc. And then diagrams also. Exercises for language practice, tasks, and activities are also built into the text material. So these are the print materials. Okay, print materials are text materials which are like included textbooks, workbooks, supplementary, etc. Now, what is non-print materials are like television, like radio, audio, and video cassettes, etc. are called non-print materials. And then by REALA we mean objects. In addition, REALA can be brought in. So not only these print and non-print materials, REALA can be brought. What is REALA? We mean objects that exist in the real life and could serve as a useful resources for language teaching, especially in at the initial stages. What REALA is? So guys, these are the kinds of materials. What are these kinds of materials? Print materials and non-print materials. And along with this one, REALA can also be brought into the classroom. What is the REALA? Is this objects at a very very early stages or initial stages of the learning process. These REALA objects can be brought into the classrooms and then be shown, and through that presenting them in the classroom, they can actually, the teacher can take the teacher can actually give information about those objects, and then let the students learn through having a practical observation and then knowing the object. That's how these materials can help us. And then besides that, so textbook, okay. Right. And then not only that, computer assisted language learning is again one more thing which is all the time very important, because it is, this could also, this could also be used as a material, source of learning, like self-instruction and as well as the instruction in the classroom. This can also be. What is that? Computer assisted language is also an important language learning medium. Many of the materials carried through technology can be used for self-instruction and as well as instruction in the class. So these are the four. Basically, the main division is print and non-print material. Along with the print and non-print material, we have REALA and also other source of language learning is computer assisted language learning. Can also be used to learn a language. This can also be taken as a self-learning, self-instruction kind of a thing, and kind of instruction in the classroom also. That these are the four different types of materials you can consider. Besides these two main, there are other two also. So I think it's very clear. And then one more thing, guys. In this one only, there is another one. So instructional materials. I already did this one. Textbooks in college. So again in this particular paragraph, and the next one after the activity one is there. Instructional materials used in the schools generally comprises of main course books, workbooks, and supplementary readers, etc., etc. Right? So these have got a different. See, what is that? These textbooks, whatever the prescribed material is there for a particular level of students, are to be taught in a different, with a different methodology actually. But generally what do the teachers do is that they will follow, extensive, exhaustively, explain everything in the book exhaustively. So hence the students do not develop any independent reading, guys. Actually, that is the problem. So that one we just have to be very clear about. Guys, you have understood this one. So what is that instructional materials in the schools, especially in the schools, guys? Here, instructional materials used in the schools, textbooks in the colleges. These are two different categories I'm telling you. Sorry. So instructional materials are generally comprises of main course books, workbooks, and supplementary readers. So what will happen? The work. What is there? The main course books contains the text to be studied with comprehensive questions and glossary, and a few language tasks may also be provided there. And then the workbooks generally consist of workbooks. What do we have in the workbooks? Vocabulary, grammar, vocabulary, written exercises, etc., etc. And what is the supplementary is used for? For the supplementaries are mostly a collection of stories, or maybe a one story in a elaborate. Details, elaborate details and all that. So it could be a one story, or consists of number of collection of stories also, supplementary reader. So and also few essays also for extensive reading at the home. The supplementary is meant to be extensively read at home. But teachers, however, do not often see the purpose of each and explain them and so exhaustively that the students do not develop the self, study skills. That is one important thing. This is in the school, how the teachers will exploit, what are the materials that are there, and how the teachers exploit the materials in the schools. Now, and now coming to the textbooks in the colleges are anthology of the prose and poetry pieces. The only realizable objective here is to exposure to the literature. Exposure to the literature, and the literature in English remains. Okay, what is that? Content remains the focus. So literature in English and content remains the focus. So what is that? Content is very important. With the increase, what is the objective here is that with increased need for oral proficiency, engineering colleges also equipped with the laboratories where phonetics is taught and practiced. So little attention is paid for the fluency development. So in this one, this is the anthology. In the college textbooks are anthology of prose and poetry pieces, etc., etc. So right, guys. So this is how. Because here the main objective is that what is the main objective of the text materials that are there prescribed in the colleges is that extensive exposure to the literature. Okay. But what happens is that, in order to have, they have a lot of engineering colleges, they come up with the labs and all that, so that where they can actually improve their oral proficiency, because oral proficiency has become more, now we are giving more priority or more importance to the oral proficiency. So they are equipping all the colleges, engineering colleges are equipping or, their infrastructure with laboratories and all that. Language laboratories. So that's how it is, the different materials at school level and also college level. And then proficiency. This is one thing, guys, and another, setting, learning setting. What is that? Proficiency courses in non-formal courses have looked at the deficiency of the school programs in English with their focus on the examination-oriented questions, and have tried to evolve a task-based methodology where flexi materials are used. So what is this proficiency course? These are non-formal courses. Non-formal, like, non-formal is like, if at all anybody, like for example, if I tell you one thing, so English with their focus on the examination. So what is that flexi material? They are a simple test illustrative of the language functions. So for example, like the programs which are organized, for example, spoken English classes are there. These are non-formal, right? So what do they do is that they will take the they are samples of the text illustrative of the language functions, and then they're replaceable by the similar text with similar functions. The functions are practiced through meaningful tasks through group and pair work activities that so that the students can transfer the skills acquired in the classroom to the real life communicative use. So that's how this non-proficient, non-formal courses are there. Non-formal courses which actually helps the, task-based, and then with the help of group or pair work, they actually transfer the skills, and then they acquire them, and then they can use the skills in the real life situation. That's how these are the two, these are the three places where the materials, how the materials are exploited by the teachers in three different situations. One is at the school, one is at the college level, and then the other non-formal courses. So I think it's very clear. And then, okay, coming to another one. Yeah. So now coming to this is how, what is this? Kinds of instructional materials. So kinds of instructional materials at three different places. What is that? School, college, and then non-formal non-formal courses. So this is how the materials are designed. So okay, and then we also learned about print material, non-print material, and also CALL. CALL is computer assisted language learning, and then we also learned about REALA. REALA is the real objects brought into the classroom to make it very authentic for the students to learn by seeing it and learning it. So that these are the four different kinds of instructional materials, and how these materials are exploited at different levels, different settings like school, college, and non-formal courses. So guys, I think, am I doing good, or how is that?
Ma'am, we are able to understand.
All right, thanks. Yeah, okay. If you understand, that's the greatest thing. Yeah, good thing. Yeah. Yeah, and then again, coming to another important aspect is factors in design and development of the material. So, how do these materials are developed? What is that? Who are our learners? There are certain, there are 7 aspects that, keeping these aspects in their mind, the materials are designed and developed. So what is that? Who our learners are, what their levels of proficiency, what level they should be guided towards, what skill of the language they need to be trained, and all this. See, there are a few of them. The positioning of the language in the curriculum, the methodology to be adapted in the classroom. These are based on these aspects. These are the factors that are keeping in the view of the criteria of these things. Materials are designed and developed. So how many are there? 3, 3, 6, 7, 8 are there. So just go through those 8 points here. And then each point has been elaborated actually. Not elaborated. For example, there's some information which is given in here in this one. So what is that? So identifying the approach to the language teaching that we decide would be most appropriate to a particular group of learners for the ends that they likely to achieve. So this is what I have been all through my lessons. I have been telling you guys, like whatever the group of learners are there in a particular instructional setting, based on their objective or their needs, the materials are to be used. And then for example, there is an example given in our textbook also. If a group of employees from a call center have registered on a course to improve their pronunciation, we might use CDs with the pronunciation exercises on the lines of the audio lineal method. So, guys, you have understood, right? Based on their necessity, based on the requirement, the approaches of the language teaching should be should be selected, and then that's how the materials are also to be selected. So the CD, the one who actually call center employees, they mostly look at they mostly want to improve their pronunciation. So CDs can rescue, come to their aid. CDs come to their aid with lot of pronunciation exercises and all these things, right? So if tone, intonation, all these things can be taught by the audio CDs. So and then and there is another one also in example given in our textbook. If another group is interested in improving their fluency based on CLT, what is CLT is communicative language teaching. So CLT is communicative language teaching. This is an approach, right? Would be used with the support by the teacher. The technique used would involve group and peer work, role play, simulation, and the like. So that's how appropriate language teaching methods appropriate for the particular learner group. We have to be able to select them. So identification is very, very important. Initially, for what purpose a group of learners are, enrolled themselves for a course. That's how based on these identification of their needs, then the materials are to be selected and then executed in the course of their study. So, and then the next one is material in themselves do not embody any approach except they are specifically written for a course of instruction. So what is that? As I told you in my just now, like they're generally representative language samples of various kind of formal prose, informal conversation, literacy, information, descriptive, autobiographical, biographical, humorous writing, or speech or graphic. Whatever is there, these materials actually, these language materials, they give information. They are actually embodied. They won't embody any kind of approach except if they are specifically written. These things will not actually be specifically written with the, with an objective. Unless these materials are prescribed for a course, the objectives and then the objectives are not being specifically, prescribed, right? For example, the same material can lead themselves to the different types of treatments in the class. This is the methodology. It is the objectives and the methods that convey the approach rather than the material themselves. So if at all, if the materials are introduced to a particular level, to a group, so it is the objectives and the methodology that will convey the approach rather than the material themselves. Material won't help. Materials only supply with the information, and then the objectives that they have to realize, that actually makes the methodology, and also the materials are made. Okay, we exploit the materials to realize an objective. That's as simple as that. So what is that? The materials are like tools. They are the, they are the medium where we actually realize some objective. Like whatever the skills they want to improve on, these materials will help us. So the materials will not, as such, will not mention any objective or the methodology, but the group which intends what is the purpose of the learners based on their necessities or requirements or purpose. We have to exploit these materials with an objective and also methodology. We need to do that. So, and then coming to another paragraph in this one, note the objectives and methodologies that convey the approach rather than the material themselves. So objectives will help. And after that, what is there? Language exposure is not something that is restricted to the classroom. Language is all around, even if it is not our own native language, especially in today's environment of the audio visual. audio-visual media of, infotainment. Infotainment, learners come to the language classroom with input for other areas. So they might be curious about something that they have heard or read in the language. Outside the classroom, these can be ingested into the teaching materials, thus expanding instruction. So this also can be helpful for learning. What is that? Infotainment can also be used. Infotainment means audio visual media of infotainment can also be ingested as teaching materials, thus expanding the instruction. So this is how these can also be used. Not only the materials which are print or non-print materials, but also this infotainment audio-visual media kind of materials can also be taken into consideration for the language learning and expanding the instruction also. So, and then the features of material. What are the features of material? This is the materials that learners should find. The materials are the textbooks interesting and also useful. So for that, motivation is essential. Motivation is always essential is a prerequisite for learning, and this motivation can be secured by the materials that are interesting. So I'll tell you guys, one important thing is that here, I think that is also, we are close to the end of our session. So I'll just tell you some important thing here. So whatever if any learner, if you want to find a material interesting, that means the material, we should relate to the material, right? We should actually have some kind of interest in that particular text, wherein we can consistently and then continue pursuing that or reading that. So what makes the features of the materials? So challenge level. For example, I'll just tell you guys, this challenge level is there. For example, if in degree student is there, if you actually give him a story which is which is there in the 6th class textbook, will that actually make the the learner interested in that in that particular story? No, he won't be, because it is all he knows all the words. He won't find it interesting because there are no difficult words or challenging words which actually he wants to curious about, create some kind of inquisitiveness wherein he tries to dwell into the subject and then learn things and all that. So that is how this features of the material are like to draw the attention of the learners. These are the features that are to be kept in mind while prescribing or while designing the materials for a level of students. Challenging level, cultural content, authenticity, contemporaneity, meaning, focus, variety, relevance, space validity, and visual and oral appeal. So this is one thing. And then these are, and for every aspect, there is an elaborate explanation in our textbook. Please follow that. Read the whole, all the paragraphs, guys, so that you will get in-depth information about each and every particular, aspect, features of the materials. Okay, so that's one thing. And then again, the end, what do we understand by this?
Page number 139, 140, and 141.
Yes.
To read.
Yes, exactly. Yes, exactly. Yeah, these components are elaborated in the, in my textbook, it is 142, 143. So please read those paragraphs actually. And then drawing to an end of this session, what are these things? There are some of the factors that secure the interest of the materials users in the classroom. In addition to these, materials, the teachability and the learnability can also be added to secure the attention of the student, to grab the attention of the student and let the interest sustain in the learner. That's how the teachability and the learnability can also add to these features actually. So, and then materials should yield activity that learners can engage in. So activities will make the learners very much involved in learning things. So we need to, activities should also be there. If the teacher and the learners find the, and one more thing, the materials are not the only ultimate, ultimate sources of information, but if the teachers and the learners find the materials do not serve their purpose of the language development, they may have to look for the supplementary resources. So they may, this is another point that needs to be noted here. And that's it. That's how it is, guys. Actually, there's one teacher, the one who wrote this chapter has actually given his experience, I think, at the end of the lesson. Just please go through that, and then, yeah, you can, I think you will be able to write a question on this one. Material, instructional materials, right, guys? Yeah, ma'am. Ma'am, Daksha, ma'am, you was asking me something. Can you please let me know? Ma'am?
Sorry.
Yeah.
It was on the mute. It was in the mute. I'm very sorry, ma'am.
No, that's okay, dear.
Just now we learned what is the difference between teaching the materials and teaching with the materials. So just now you explained, we'll go through the chapter. Actually, teaching the materials is not important, but teaching with the materials is important, right?
Teaching through the materials is important.
Important. Okay. Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
And,
it is not that material we are teaching. We are teaching through the material. So we need, it actually aids us. It is a resource where we can exploit it, and then where we can actually, produce more, like, kind of taking the help of the materials, and we are exploring it into the different things.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, that's how it is. So we actually learned about what are kinds of the background of instruction. Why do we need instructional materials, and then kinds of the instructional materials, and the factors in which the design and develop the materials, and the features of the materials. Features of the materials are, in order to grab the attention of the learner and sustain their interest in the material, these are the features that are need to be kept in mind while designing, or the motivation is very, very important in order to grab the attention of the students, right? So these things have to be, kept in mind while prescribing or while designing the material. That's how these things are. So we have understood 4 different aspects: the background and the kind of instructional materials, and then factors in designing the materials, and the features of the materials.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So, and then anything else here? Guys, I think, yeah, 1 second, guys, 1 second. Nick, 1 second. I just have to take a picture. Nick. Guys, thank you so much for patiently lending your ears to me. Thanks a lot. And hope, yeah, I'll see you tomorrow, guys, with more information. Yeah, guys. So, yeah, thank you, guys.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.